Greetings, everyone, to the Win Via Trust Leadership Podcast. I am Michael Rabinowitz, and in this podcast, I speak directly with leaders and newsmakers to provide you with both practical guidance and fresh inspiration as you think about trusting your own leadership journey. Before we get to the podcast, I am excited to announce that my Win Via Trust book, which provides a practical leadership framework to build trust, close deals, and deliver exceptional results, is now available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover formats. Yet, most importantly for today, we're fortunate to talk to Kara Teeple. She has been the Chief Executive Officer of Lawrence Hall since 2015. Lawrence Hall, which was featured on Good Morning America in August, is a 159-year-old social service organization with a mission to empower individuals who have experienced trauma by providing healing, stability, and community connection in the greater Chicago area. Tara oversees 275 employees that provide services including therapeutic day school, residential treatment, foster care, older adolescent programming, workforce development, creative therapies, and community wellness services. Besides Lawrence Hall, Tara has been chairman of the board of the Chicago Alliance for Collaborative Effort and worked for over 16 years at the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. She was named in the Titan 100 in Chicago, which recognizes the top CEOs and C-level executives in the area. She holds a master's of social work from Loyola University in Chicago and a BA in sociology from Wittenberg College. Tara, that is quite impressive. We're very fortunate to have you because you were our first leadership guest coming from the nonprofit space. To start with, please tell me what inspired you to focus your career on social services.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael. Yeah, I've been involved in helping since I can remember. I really get it from my parents. Both of them are such charitable people. My father recently passed away, and my joke to him when he was passing was, I will still carry on being the biggest tipper around, because he believed in the service industry. So I started thinking I could be an educator, and then I quickly learned that I don't have a creative bone in my body. So I thought, well, what other way could I help people? And it was social work. So I was honored to kind of get more immersed in that field.
That's great, and you've certainly had a great career within it. Was there a key event that accelerated your career into senior management?
Yeah, I've kind of been accelerated a lot, sometimes thrown into the fire. I was working at the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services that you mentioned for 16 years, and I was a supervisor. And then my boss, still my mentor, she was leaving. And so she had me interview for her position, was a deputy director right under the governor. So I was able to move into that role where I spent about 5 of my last years as a deputy director over placement and permanency services. So it was definitely a big launch. I was kind of not always prepared for that launch when you start to supervise your former colleagues, but it was the greatest launch ever of kind of the foundation of what set me going forward from there.
That's great and very impressive. I'd like to talk a little about self-trust in that role, but let me shift first to our leadership topic in general. Can you help us level set and understand what trust means to you and how important it is for a social service organization?
Great question. I mean, trust at my level, being a leader, making sure that people understand why I'm leading, how I'm leading, and that I'm actually listening and being self-reflective. As a leader, we're doing a lot of work with my management team now on what it means to be a good leader. You have to always be checking yourself at the door. And then for those that we serve in social services, often vulnerable populations, so youth and families that we work with at Lawrence Hall, I mean, that trust is often broken at the hands of an adult, often a family member. And so we take this work very seriously, that we're going to partner with you, with the young person and their family, and try to work towards what does healing mean for them. Trust is so important as we rebuild trust, helping them to understand that we are supportive adults when maybe they've never had that in their life because they've had such distrust of adults. And it's trust at all levels in social services. We're trying to be mission driven. So how do you make sure your mission is having impact? So trusting us that we're delivering the best quality services. So trust is coming in pretty much at every level, but it's something that we work on every day. We don't take it lightly in any stretch.
And thanks for proactively highlighting how trust is different in your organization versus the traditional for-profit company. Clearly, given the clientele that you work with and the people you're trying to improve their lives, it takes on even more importance. Now, Lawrence Hall does a remarkable work supporting children and families whose trusts have been broken due to past experiences. Can you share more about what your organization does and how you begin rebuilding that trust with the people you serve?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We've been doing this work. You mentioned 159. We actually celebrated, Michael, 160 years last October, and I can't believe that we're 160 years old. This work is so important. It's about empowering those who've experienced trauma by helping them on their healing journey. So we're going to be about inner healing. We have a lot of different strategies to work with youth and families, whether it's therapy programming or just creative arts. And then we're about promoting stability. So, a lot of our young people and families have had instability in their housing situations. And so we're about making sure they have a great place to live, to get those skills to kind of move on from us. And then community connection. All of us need community to grow. It's about those stable adults, but also community around us. So we're about helping communities to build up again by offering resources and other linkages. So our 7 core programs really hit those 3 areas. And that's, again, where trust is just so critical at every level, that we're trying to work and take the youth and the family where they're at. Again, it's a journey. It's not a race. Some people in the world will say, well, why can't you just solve this person's trauma? It's, again, where are they at, and what program is going to work with them the best, through our services at Lawrence Hall to get them towards a better healing pathway. And that takes some time.
Well, I'm sure it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Many organizations, although yours is quite sizable, 275 employees, the CEO spends the full time trying to managing that organization, set the strategic path, and then grow future leadership. You have an additional responsibility in terms of bringing in donors. How do you work through that and communicate to the donors so that they trust where they put their money, that it's going to be fully utilized and deliver the value that they were hoping for?
Great question. You really got me going on these questions, Michael. I am a transparent leader. I believe that helps. Is we've been through our own traumas as an organization, just like a lot of companies out there, whether you're for profit or not for profit. And so being able to lean into those, doing your own SWOT analysis regularly with your team, what's working, what's not, where there are opportunities for growth. And then speaking to that when you're talking with donors and supporters, that they see the realness of this work. You're not trying to sugarcoat anything just to get their funding. It's about, yes, we had a situation here, whether a young person, because we're always about risk management, but we have our outcomes, we have our performance and quality improvement measures, and you're able to speak to those when you're speaking with the donor community. But it's transparency and then relationships. I never take lightly that any donor or supporter, big or small, they're all people and they're all so important to our work. And so my team and myself, we try to cultivate those relationships every day. And that has really helped us, whether it's a new funder or existing, to keep that momentum going on what our mission's about. And usually people will get behind it because we're having those real conversations together.
Makes sense. And talking more about your organization specifically, salaries can't always be the primary motivator, especially in social services. And so leadership and trust have to do much more of the work. How do you attract and inspire the kind of talent that keeps Lawrence Hall's mission strong?
Culture is everything. I think any organization can say that, especially at places that are not always having those salaries, like you mentioned, Michael. So we really work in our culture every day, wanting to be like a top workplace, making sure that our team members feel valued, supported, and heard at all levels. So we have platforms for recognition. We do town halls to make sure that we're listening and also educating on what's happening across the organization. And then we also do a lot of development. So a lot of our promotions have been internal promotions, and we really celebrate those every year and every quarter, and lifting people up. And it shows when new staff come in, oh my gosh, my team member, my supervisor has been here and they've moved up. I think that really helps to bring about the culture. And we also try to work on our benefits package. I never want to pass through any benefits costs to my employees if I can avoid it. And we've had about 6 years of not doing that. I know our world will never be perfect like that, but I've been able to sustain a performance merit increase and not passing on those benefits costs. So we just accrue those. I think that people don't like to often, they don't want to hear that. They want money in their pocket, but we try to make that be part of the overall package that we're showcasing about Lawrence Hall.
Culture is so important, as you said. I'm sure there's a lot of ups and downs working in the organization, a lot of very impressive results that you can get in working with these families and children, but also there's some realities that not everything goes extremely well. Can you talk to me how you work with your employees through those ups and downs and maintain the focus that they need.
Yeah, I think professional development is big and making sure that we have a good supervisory practice. We've really been working on a national model, care. It's through Cornell University. It's a trauma informed model. We're always about trauma informed care at Lawrence Hall. We've been that way for decades, but this is a new way of how we talk together and how we work with kids, whether you're in the kitchen, our facilities team, or a frontline staff. So it's really giving the language and normality. So I think that helps, that it gives all team members something about they're all working towards. And then listening. I think we have to do more of that, coaching and listening and developing our staff. I mean, they're the best supporters of our work. If we can grow them, and the fact that we have 7 core programs at Lawrence Hall, I always say, get your stability in one program and maybe decide that in whatever 6 months, a year, you want to go somewhere else within Lawrence Hall. I'd rather have that than develop you than have you go to the same type of organization if I can just try to grow you here naturally.
And you really hit upon something there, listening. Listening is one of the key ways that we actually get trust from others, because they feel that we really are thinking about what's best for them versus always thinking about our own agenda. Is there some practices that you've had that have helped you to be a better listener and to encourage people to come to you with their thoughts and look for your advice?
For my management team and myself included, we always have an open door policy so people can come in at any level. We never want to trump people on going above someone's supervisor, but the reality is we all know sometimes that happens. So for me, I'll always bring the other supervisor in. Let's have a conversation with the person just to make sure that they feel valued and heard. And usually it's resetting a relationship that maybe they did or did not have with their supervisor. So I think your point of listening, I try to listen more and talk less. When they come in, usually it's something that they're worried about, and it's usually just a connection issue. And I'm kind of trying to reset the connection with the person that can best help them, their direct supervisor. But I think the more that people do that and not try to I think in my field, we try to oversolve people's issues. And so I've had to learn in my 54 years, hey, just take a minute. This person literally doesn't want you to solve their problem. They want to have help, maybe set a course of what they could do, but just listen. And I think we all could do better with that in life, is just listen more to understand.
Go back to something we had talked about very early in the discussion, where we were talking about how you leapfrogged in some ways from your position to more senior management. And I mentioned that self-trust must have been very important for you to be successful, because anytime you take on higher responsibility, higher risk, there's self-doubts. So talk to me about your self-trust and where did that come from?
Yeah, I think I definitely doubted myself initially a lot. Like, why am I getting this promotion? I don't really know the role completely. Appreciate the respect that they had to put me in the roles, but I had to learn that respect and I always wanted to be liked and respected. And I think in the roles I've had, especially being at Lawrence Hall, being in the seat over 275 staff, I will not always be liked. And that's an uncomfortable position to be in. And sometimes I won't be respected either. I hope that I'm vastly more respected by the bulk of my team members, but I had to really sit with that, as that there are times that I will not be liked or respected. And I have to kind of have my big girl pants on to respect that. Even though I feel like I'm a good person, some people are just not going to be in your corner, and you have to be okay with that. That comes with the big britches of being a CEO, right?
Well, you're very humble. I'm sure you're very well liked, and I know you're respected across the industry. Some of your accolades to speak to that. In social services in general, there are a lot of misunderstandings. Maybe you could give us a moment or two to correct some of those misunderstandings and how they affect the trust that is perceived for people who work in that environment.
What I always try to think about is what people naturally think of with like traumatized youth. You read about kids in papers, you see some violence, some storyline, and people will say, oh, those are bad kids, Kara. There are no bad kids. I mean, there are kids that if they could do better, they would. So I wish that, when we use a trauma-informed approach at Lawrence Hall, I just wish that everyone would use the lens of a trauma-informed approach, is to think that there's a story behind that young person's life that has impact the way they're acting. And if they could do better, they would. And so it's on the adults. So obviously us being entrusted to serve these awesome young people, it's on us to be able to be adults to help them on their journey, their pathway forward towards success. And so again, there's no bad kids. It's a misperception. It's just opportunities that these young people have not received, and not received that adult support system that we all had when we were growing up. How many of us were developed at 26, which is healthy brain development. No, I mean, I was still having my parents help me with rent, and how many other people had that story, but some people don't have that opportunity. So we just have to think and stop that messaging that it's a bad kid. There's not a bad kid.
That's very important. And that's a great takeaway for us. You're one of the first female CEOs that we've had the pleasure to have on the podcast. And everyone has a different story, but sometimes it's harder for women in leadership positions to naturally get trust from others. Can you speak to this? Did you have any stories that it might have been easier for someone who was male to be in the position of trust versus yourself?
Yeah, I think when I was working at the state, there was a lot of dominance of males. And I think when I did get this promotion, I think there were some people that were probably just like disbelief because I wasn't really that well known. How could I do this role? But again, I had great directors and great other senior leaders that were already on my side. But I think that's just a perception of how did this person kind of come up the ranks, so to speak. So yeah, I think women have a tougher time, even though women is generally pretty much the field of social work. But I think in leadership, sometimes it's not always that conception is still there. You know, a male could do it better.
And I know there's a big month coming up in April. Do you want to tell us a little about what's happening in April for you?
Yeah, we're always about different months. Obviously, Pride coming up in June because we're such an affirming organization. But in April, it is Prevent Child Abuse Month, and we take that very seriously. So you'll be passing around blue ribbons, highlighting just messaging, the awareness that we need people to really get behind this work. And we need foster parents as well. So if anyone is ever interested in fostering in Illinois, specifically Chicagoland, please reach out. We definitely have a great foster care program and need your help in opening your hearts and your homes to these wonderful kids that just need a place that they can call home until we're hopefully able to get them back to where their family is.
Kara, I don't know if this is the case, but often organizations like yourselves get funding from local and state governments and even the federal government. Do you have an active effort where you work with governments, and how does that trust dynamic any different than working with private donors?
Very, very similar. Again, working on your metrics of like what you're trying to do with young people. The funding from the government, I mean, let's be real, it's sometimes awesome, it's sometimes stable, and then sometimes it's not. And so you're always worried about, well, where can I cover these gaps? And so we experience that off and on through our times with various state, federal, and pass-through money. I think it's always just growing our development dollars. We have to always be growing at the same time our private donors because we know that sometimes there are not going to be coverages by the government. So we got to be ready for that. So we really need more cultivation of donors privately to help us with our work, even though we'll always be reliant on some kind of government funding because that just comes with the work of working with these populations of young people.
Kara, you've been very kind in letting me ask a lot of questions, but I want to ask one more for you. I think we've covered a lot of ground, but perhaps there's one question that I should have asked you. Please fill in the gaps with anything that you suggest.
I think you kind of were leading into this, Michael, and I'm actually excited to check out your book. I'm sure it's going to speak to this, but just the importance of always being, I mentioned it earlier and you did too, self-reflective in this work. I feel like as leaders, people with, whether I have 30 years of experience or others that are more than me, you always have to be reflective. And sometimes there is distrust. You can have trust that has been broken, and it's important that you get ahead of it. And you're not, well, I'm not going to deal with that person. They don't mean anything to me. Every person means something in your industry. And so it's about being able to be humble and speak into what maybe you did that was not the best way to approach something. And so I just think as leaders, we more need to speak to that as where could we have maybe do things differently? We're always adapting our styles of leadership, but you have to adapt always in meeting the needs of who you're working with. So I really take that seriously every day too, as I tell my team, I'm far from perfect. If there's something I do that you feel is not the best, please come talk to me and I'll have a discussion with you. But I'd rather have that than someone talking about me behind my back and you're getting someone else to get rubbed the wrong way. Let's just nip it in the bud and move forward.
Well, and that's how leaders grow. And it's clear that you've grown a lot over the years and been very, very successful for your organization. Well, I think that's it for our discussion today. I want to close and thank you, Kara, for an excellent discussion. This is Mike Rabinowitz on the Win Via Trust Leadership Podcast. Please remember to subscribe for future podcasts and blogs at winviatrust.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you.